Hi everyone, and welcome to our first webinar for 2021. And I hope you all had a great Christmas or whatever celebrations you celebrate, and welcome to the new year. I'm Martin from Support, and I'm joined today by...
Hi, I'm Karen, and I'm working here in the background. I'll be helping out with your questions. If you do have a question, pretty please use the Q&A tab that's down on the bottom or at the top, I don't know where, but it's a Q&A special section where we'll be looking for your questions, and we'll be going into the questions throughout the webinar. Is that right, Martin?
Absolutely. There's certain sections where, I'll stop, take a breather, I'll need a drink because my voice will be going, and that'll be a great time for questions.
Okay, great. Well, I'll see you there.
Right, okay, so welcome to this webinar. This is Pano 2VR professional skin building. So what do we mean by this? Right, well, you've probably seen the skins that we have with Pano 2VR. So if I just open it up, you'll see that we've got our silhouette and simplex skins, and when you click on the skin configuration, you've got lots of things that you can adjust and alter with this skin without the need for going into the skin itself and modifying it. The whole point of this webinar is to show you how to build a skin that will have this skin configuration available for you to either quickly modify your own skins, or if you plan to build components or skins for other people, so you can build what we would refer to as a professional skin. Now, one of the things that we spoke about is that what we want to do is we've already have customers that build skins and sell them. I know there's a few on Facebook, and I see them pop up every now and then in the forum under the commercial offering section. And what we want to do is, if you guys are serious about doing this, if you can give us a link to your website, what we will do is create a page on our website where people can go to purchase your skins. Okay, so with that said, what I want to do then is start with the webinar. Right, so I'm going to start with a brand new skin, and the first thing I'm going to do is open it up, and I'm going to save it. So I'm going to go File, Save. I'm going to save it to the desktop and the folder, so my project folder, Skin 2, call it Skin 2. There we go. Right, so a couple of things that you've really got to think about is what, I suppose the first thing really is, what buttons are you going to want to use? So as this is going to be a skin, what I'm going to do is, to make my life a little bit easier for this webinar, is rather than building everything from scratch, I'm just going to use components, and then we're going to modify the skin to work with the button. So the first thing we need to do then is I'm going to add a point hotspot. Okay, then the other thing I want my skin to have, so let's go into the components, is zoom. So I'm just going to use the text filter zoom. So I'm just going to double click, add a zoom button. I think the other thing I'm going to want is a projection, so projection button. Let's see what else I want is thumbnail, so have a thumbnail menu, and what we'll do is have a full screen, and I think we'll also have an enter VR as well. Alright, okay. Now there is a reason why I've chosen this arrangement of buttons, and this will all become self-explanatory, but these are not buttons or unknown buttons to have in a normal skin. So what I'm going to do is, to make my life easier in the skin canvas, is hide the elements I don't need to be working with. So that would be the hotspot template, and also the thumbnail menu itself. I'm really interested in the buttons. So again, what I'm going to do is move up the elements and just get them out the way, so I've got everything I want down here. Again, this is purely to make my own life easier. I'm going to select all the buttons, because by default all of our components drop everything and are anchored center middle or center bottom, and set for the center of the canvas and 23 pixels up. But I'm going to want to rearrange these, so I'm going to set the anchor position for top left, and I'm going to set the position for 0, 0. All right, because what I want to do is spread out my buttons in an orderly fashion. Now, I know that my buttons are 32 pixels wide. So, and I also know that the button for the zoom has 2 pixels. It has a plus and a minus. You can't see the plus when it's covered by these, but you can see the minus one. So my next button then, its position needs to be 64 pixels. There we go. Right, okay. So the next button along will be, let's have a look, 96. The next button will be 128. And then finally, the VR button will be 160. All right, so that's those buttons now laid out. That's how I want them in the order. What I want to do is I'm going to add a container, and I'm going to wrap a container around all these buttons, and I'm going to call this container slider. All right, and I'm now going to add another container and wrap another container around the lot, or all of the buttons, and call that controller. All right, now with the controller, this enables me now to position the buttons. So I can middle, bottom, I can set 0 so it's in the center of the screen, and then my 23 pixels up from the bottom. I'm using 23 because that's the number I normally use. You can position them however far up or down you wish. All right, so that's the basic layout. Right, now the other thing I like to do at this point, and trust me, it does make your life easier, is in the skin tree, I like the buttons to be in the order top to bottom, left to right. Now my left to right is going to be zoom, projection, menu, etc. So I'm going to rearrange these to do that. All right. Now this will make life a lot easier when we come to do some actions, because what we do is we'll add some actions to the button to the left, i.e. the bottom one, and then we can copy and paste those actions to the next button up. All right. So if we do it in the correct order now, we'll save ourselves a lot of time later. You don't have to do it this way. If you know how to do this, then you can just pick and choose and click whatever element that you need to add your actions to. But if you're starting out, trust me, I've worked hard to try and find a nice easy way to do this. So anyway, that's basically the layout. Now, knowing that all of these will be an option to turn on and off or to hide and show. So that tells me straight away I've got to add option variables. All right, so I'm going to type in opt underscore and zoom being the first one. Oh, let's try that again, shall we? Zoom. That needs to be a true false variable set to true, and the text here, when it's exposed, or ex, this is short for exposed, this will be the menu that we'll see. So this is going to be the zoom, zoom buttons. Right, I seem to be all fingers today. Right, so this one is going to be opt, what's the next one down? Projection. So projection, again, this is going to be true, false, set to true. I'm going to expose it, and this is going to be my projection button. Button's only one of them, and I'm just going to need to do this now for the rest, so you can see what's going on. So we've got opt, actually that's, I actually spelt that wrong, so let's try that. Projection. Right, so this one is going to be option thumbnail. Again, that's going to be a true false. That's going to be a thumbnail menu. This one is going to be a opt, and that's going to be full screen. Again, true false, and this will be my full screen button. And finally, it's going to be opt underscore VR, and that is going to be for my VR button. Right, so what does all of that just do for me? Well, I've added all these optional variables in the skin. If I was to close and save the skin now, you'll see that when we go to the skin configuration, you'll see that these buttons are now exposed. They're all selected because they're all set to true, and of course we want to see them all. Okay, now at the moment you ain't going to be doing a great deal. If I select the enter full screen button, you'll see that it's already got a visible logic block, because this is a clever little button. It knows that if you open it up on a computer, it should hide, and it's only going to become available or visible when VR is available. But what I need to do here is go to the opt VR and add that as equal true as well, because if I deselect it in the skin configuration, that means regardless if it opens on the computer or on your VR headset, I don't want it to show. So what this expression is saying is if VR is available and I've actually set the VR option to be true, then we'll see it. If it's turned off, regardless of where it's going to be viewed, you won't see it. And of course, if it's all turned on and you open it up on a computer, because VR will not be available on a computer, you won't see the button either. So basically, with it selected, you'll only see the button on a VR compatible device. Okay, so that's that. So what I need to do now then is do exactly the same thing, deselect visible for the full screen button, and then what we'll do is go variable opt full screen true, and I want to see that button true. I just need to do this for all of them. So again, deselect visible, variable opt thumbnail. So when the thumbnail option is set to true, I want to see this button. And again, I'm going to use the logic for variables. So that was projection. When that's true, we'll see that. And finally, the zoom buttons. Okay, so we'll do variables opt zoom when that variable is true, which the defaults are, then we'll see those buttons. So again, to test this, if I just export this, even though I've deselected visible, because of all the variables are default set to true, we are going to see the buttons. Now I know we can't see the VR headset button, but I've got Safari and I'm in developer mode, which basically means I can change the user agent here. This is just for testing, to iPhone, which basically means it's VR is available, even though it's on my desktop. It's just a way of testing, so that's how I can show you. Okay, what I want to introduce at this point is a little helper. People that have seen my webinars in the past know that I like my little helpers to help me develop skin. So we're going to call that helper 1. And basically this is just going to be a rectangle that's going to act as a center mark for helping me line up. So I'm going to have it width of 3 and it wants to be 100% tall. Right, what this is going to do is have a center mark to help me line up the buttons, and so we can see it all working. So let me just save and publish, and there we go. So there's my center mark. Now you can see it's off center because we haven't set the user agent and seeing that. So here we go, we've got 3 buttons either side of the center mark. So that now says to me that's perfectly lined up. Okay, so that is all of my variables set. So I've got variables for that's all of my optional variables set. Okay, so I can turn on and off buttons. Okay, and we did do that. I mean, I'll just revisit that actually. So if we go back to the output, you can see I won't bother changing that, but you can see that we've got our buttons there. If I turn off the full screen button, click OK and export that, you'll see that the full screen button is missing. The other button's missing obviously because we're not in VR mode in the browser. So you can see that I can use the skin configuration button to hide and show the buttons. What it's not doing at the moment, which is the key part, is moving the buttons around. Okay, so that takes me nicely onto the section of why did I introduce a slider. Okay, now bear with me on this. It isn't a mind bender, it's actually quite logical. Think about it. This is a slider, all the buttons are in the slider. If I remove one of these buttons, obviously according to the center mark, the buttons are now too far over to the left. So what the slider will do is move to the right to keep them centered. So as I remove another button, the slider will move a bit more to the right to keep the button centered. So as I take buttons away from the left, the slider moves over to the right. Cool. So how are we going to do this then? Right, well, the actions for this is player state changed. It's not config loaded, it's not start. Basically the timings of when you've got to see this. Start happens too soon, config loaded can misfire. Player state change is the one that we want. All right, so player state change, so when the player state changes, either on open or when we resize it or do whatever, what we want it to do is to change positions, right? Okay, but the issue is there is no position variables for it. Okay, so this is what we've got to do. So pos. Now this is where it gets a little bit repetitive. So pos zoom. Okay, that can stay a number. We also want pos underscore projection. Ooh. Pos underscore projection. That needs to be pos underscore thumbnail. That needs to be pos underscore full screen. Let's see, let's put the whole word in, and then we've got pos underscore VR. Alright, so we've now got position variables with numbers. Now these are numbers. Now this is what's going to help us move these things around. Okay, so let's get back to where I was. So back with the slider, what I'm going to do is use a variable. I forgot one. Here we go. Pos underscore slider. Alright, okay, because that's the one we want to change. So on the slider then, I'm going to go on player state changed. I want to set variable value, and the variable is going to be position slider, and I want that to equal 0. That's the first one. The reason being is that because we're using a player state change, every time the player changes state, that will trigger. So if I've got say an action to player state change 1, every time we change the player's size or whatever, it will keep adding numbers. I don't want that to happen. So the very first action is to reset that variable to 0. Then I'm going to copy and paste that variable. All right, and then I'm going to say I want that to add numbers to the variable. Now this is going to be for the zoom buttons. Now there's 2 buttons here, so I'm actually going to use the number 2. All right, and I'm only going to want this to fire when we have the variable opt zoom selected. So when opt equals true, we are going to add 2 to this variable. Okay, all right. I know it sounds a little bit confusing at the moment, but trust me, this will become very clear very soon. So again, what we're going to do is position slider. I'm just copied and pasted that. This time round, because it's a single button for the projection, I'm only going to do a count of 1, and we just need to change that to opt zoom to opt projection. All right, so I just need to keep doing that. So basically copy and paste the action. The reason why I'm copy and pasting is that's still a single button, so that can all stay as it is with adding 1 to it. I just need to change projection to thumbnail. As I say, the reason why I'm copying and pasting each one individually is because I know I've only got to select the next variable down, so I don't have to keep worrying about am I doing the right variable. So copy and paste, that's fine. So that's thumbnail, so op thumbnail, so the next one down is full screen. And then lastly, I'm going to copy and paste, and this should be for opt the VR. So when the optional VR is true, it also adds. Now you can see here we're resetting this variable, And then when all of these buttons are available and true, we're going to start counting. Now this is where I add my second helper. Alright, so it's a text box. And what I'm going to do is use the insert placeholder button, and I'm going to insert the variable for the slider variable. So that's the number. So let's just save and export this, and you'll see what's going on. You'll see this, it says 6. You can't see 6 because I haven't done the user agent. So let's show the user agent. So you can see I've got a count of 6 with 6 buttons. Cool. If I was to take one button away, so the VR button, and export, you'll see that we've now got a count of 5 with 5 buttons. So you can now see that we've got a good reference going on about, so I can use these numbers now to affect the position of this slider. So this is the variable counting up. So I'm going to reselect the slider, all right, and I'm going to now select the position logic block, and I'm going to say the position slider when the number equals 6, so when all buttons are available, right, the slider just needs to stay where it is, so no change. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste. Now you could argue why even bother putting it there, but it's logical. It makes me think in a logical way. So I'm going to right button click paste. So when we take away a button, so we're now showing 5, all right. Now think about it, buttons are 32 pixels each. If I take one away, I'm not actually, I don't want the slider to move 32 pixels. It only has to move half of the button's width, because we're now, if you had 6 buttons and you're now showing 5, the middle is going to be halfway in the middle of the center button. So it's actually going to be 16 pixels, all right. Just do that again, so 5, so this will be 4. And this will now be 32. And again, we'll do the same thing, and we'll just carry on. So that's what, 5, 4. This will be 3. That'll be 32. The next one is going to be 48. Carry on, paste, 2, 48. The next one down is going to be 64. So 64, and then finally the last one, 1, and that will then have a count of 80. Right, so let's look at this. Okay, the slider inside the container, all right, the controller, so it's so at 0, 0 pixels it is where it is. If I have one button, this needs to slide over by 80 pixels to show the one button. Okay, so let's actually see this in operation. Alright, so here it is. Let's put that in. So there's, right, okay, let's just do the user agent to give my button back. Right, so this is a count of 6. So the slider is at 0, 0 pixels. If I take this button away, what's going to happen now is the slider is going to move over by 16 pixels, which it has, and now those buttons are perfectly centered. If I take away the full screen button, click OK, it will now move over by 32 pixels and it centers those buttons. So you can see what's happening. As I'm taking away buttons, the slider is moving from left to right. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Where this goes a little bit wrong, because you could probably say, right, well, you've done it, move on, it's done, I can take away buttons and it's all centered and it's lovely. No, because if I take away the thumbnail button and then add the full screen button, so there's a gap there, you're going to see it breaks. There we go, because what should happen is that full screen button should fill the gap here. So that's our next task. Now what I'm going to do is stop here and throw it open, and do we have any questions on the understanding? I need a drink. Karen.
I'm here.
Cool.
Sorry, is it too loud? No.
So,
Alright,
do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have some questions. So Thomas Paler is asking if you use a cardboard as a VR headset, the VR available isn't usable, right? I don't. Yeah, he's asking that.
That's right. That's right.
And how do you deal with this in the configuration? Do you have to use an extra variable?
Don't really understand that question. Basically, if you produce a cardboard output, the actual output is split screen. There is no VR button necessary because the output's split screen. You only have a VR button if you're producing a normal output like this, and then when you click the VR and using what they call web VR, which is what we use, the VR, when you open up the output on, say, a phone, you'll see the normal panorama, but you'll also see the web VR button. When you click that, that's when you get the message to, do you want to activate the gyroscope? Yes, no, or do you want to do whatever you need to do? So you need to answer the question, allow, and then when you rotate it, then it split screens. So the VR button is only going to be available on a normal template. Well, it can be available on all templates, but it's only better used on a normal template because, as I say, the cardboard one is already split screen as soon as you export it. So, but I think in this day and age, my answer to this would be, why are you using the cardboard one? I mean, if you want to use custom hotspots, you can with the VR output. So I don't get why we need to carry on using the cardboard template and make the cardboard output. It was our first outing into VR, but now with Pano 2 VR version 6, we've now got web VR. We've now got this, if you don't use custom hotspots, you can use the little globe, or you can add custom hotspots in. So, I think in this day and age, I think everybody should be using the web VR rather than the cardboard template. But hey, that's just my opinion.
Well, I think cardboard VR is still useful for in the setting of conferences and stuff like that. But I guess no one's going to conferences right now. But
yeah.
In the future, I guess. Yeah. But even still, so so Thomas replied. He said he doesn't mean the cardboard template, but a cardboard to view the output. That's how I also understood it. So when you have a cardboard, when you to view the output, the VR button should show anyway, no matter what, because you need a phone, so it's going to show.
Absolutely, it's basically the button is reacting to the device it's being displayed on. It's like the gyroscope button. You wouldn't have a gyroscope button on your computer because it doesn't have a magnometer built in and it doesn't know which way is up. Where a phone has the magnometer, so therefore it passes that data to the browser. Therefore, Pano 2 VR Player knows that there is a gyroscope available to use, and when that's available, then it can show the button. It's very much the same thing with the VR. So if VR is available, the player knows about it, and then using the logic blocks can then display that button. So yeah, just stick with what we've just shown. And yeah, so basically you'll open up the tour on your phone, you'll press the enter VR button. It will then ask you the question, do you want to allow it to use your phone's gyro and everything else that it asks. You'll just allow that. As you rotate it to landscape, it will then split screen, and then you can put your phone into your cardboard type viewer, and that should then work.
Right. So there's nothing you really have to do. So
no, that's
nothing extra.
No, it's just trying to keep it sweet and simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good. So there's another question. It's off topic, but we'll answer it anyway. We'll ask it anyway. So Domenico asks, is there any chance to get some improvement for skin in WebXR? The answer would be that look forward to version 7.
I think the answer I'm getting from Thomas and Christoph, Thomas obviously being the owner and main developer, and Christoph also being a code junkie as well that sort of puts it all together. I think the answers that we're getting here are, the version 6 player is very stable at the moment, and we're bringing in a lot more stuff. Could possibly, so this is why we're going to bring it in 7, where we're going to beta test 7, so any potential problems we can iron out rather than just going in and breaking version 6. So perhaps a bit too much information, but there you go. That's the reason why we're holding off for version 7. Right, anything else?
No, I think that's it for now. Yes.
Excellent. Right, I'm going to take one more last swig. Oh, and then go on to my next part. Right, okay, so just to recap then, we've now got our slider moving backwards and forwards. And as we've said, if we take the buttons one at a time, starting from left to right, then it's going to work. Where it goes horribly wrong is if we introduce a button to the right and then that breaks, because the buttons itself also need to know its pecking order. It needs to know that if a button is missing, it needs to jump to the next space to the right. So whilst it doesn't do that, you end up with these gaps. So we've got to correct this in the skin. So basically, if we go back to the skin editor, now how this works is, as we've said, the slider moves from left to right. So I don't have to do anything with the zoom buttons because they're either there or they're not. Okay. But it's these buttons here. So if the full screen button's not there, the VR button needs to jump in its place. If the menu button's not there, both of these need to jump over by 32 pixels to actually fill the gaps. Okay, so how do we do that then? Well, very, very similar to what we did before. So this is going to be a player state changed, and this is going to be the variable, so set variable value, so the position for the VR button. All right, because we're now on the VR button, and that just needs to be 0. So this is our starting position where we wipe the variable number count clean. Okay, so again, I'm going to copy and paste. This time round, we are going to +2 for the zoom buttons, because there's 2 buttons in the zoom, and we are going to say that we are going to do this if option zoom is available, or if it's true. Okay, so we now just do the same as we did before. So this time round it's VR plus, but this time round the next button is only 1 button, so 1 position, and that needs to be opt zoom, so that needs to be the next opt down. So zoom is now projection. Click OK, copy and paste. You can see the keyboard commands I'm doing at the top there. So again, open that up. I don't need to change anything in the action, I just need to change the opt projection, so that's now thumbnail. Just need to change the action filter. So that one was thumbnail, so opt thumbnail. This is going to be full screen, and that's it. We don't need to worry about the button that we're at, because obviously this wants to know where it's going to be, so we don't have to worry about if it's there or not. Okay, so we're going to check that by doing the count. So we've got a count of 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, and again, what we're going to do is go to the position, and we're going to set the variable for position or for the VR button, and we are going to say the position for the VR button, if it's in position 0, or if there's no buttons available, so if all these other buttons have disappeared, all right, because we didn't have a count for itself, so if there's no full screen, thumbnail, projection or zoom, the count will be 0, so its position will be 0. Think about it. Here's the container underneath. If there's no zooms, that button, or that button, I say that button and that button, projection, menu, full screen, the VR button wants to be as far as it can to the right, and then the slider will bring it over and position it into the center. So this is, if you like, correct. So if there's no counts in the VR variable, position variable, it needs to be as far as it can over to the left. Okay, so I'm going to add another one, paste. So if there's a single button there, now because we're talking about buttons and not position, it's going to be 32. Remember on the slider we only did it by 16 because we can get half buttons, but we're talking about full buttons now, so we're now at the full the full count for the button. So let's just add another one. So VR, so if that's 2, so that is going to be 64. And if we add another one, so pos, that's going to be 3. 64, what goes after 64? 96, I do believe. Alright, and then the next one is 2. Am I going the right way? No. 1, 2, 3, that should be 4. Should be 4 is going to be 628. If I've got my math right. If I haven't, shoot me. 28. And I think that's it, really. That's all we needed, because its original position is at 64 pixels, as denoted by here. So if there's only 4 buttons, it needs to move over. So yeah, that's it. So when there's no buttons available, it needs to move over to 0 pixels. If there's 1 button available here, it needs to slide over and sit here. So a 32 pixel gap from the edge here to here. Next button would be 64 and everything else. Right, so that's basically what we've got. We're now counting up the position variable, and using the numbers that we've counted up to, we're changing the position of the button. So let's test this. Okay, all fingers crossed I've got everything right. So let's just click and make sure that we've added everything. All right, and then we're going to add our VR button in the user agent. So I'm now telling the computer it's a phone, so it knows that it's got the VR button. Right, so what should happen now is, because I've adjusted the VR button, if I take away the full screen, the buttons, the VR button should jump across and fill the gap of the full screen, which it's done. See that? Cool. If I now take away the thumbnail button, it should do exactly the same thing. It jumps over. So you've always got the button centered. Now obviously we've only done the VR button. What I need to do now is carry on doing the rest. Alright, so I am conscious about time, so let's have a look how we do that. And this is the reason why I stack these buttons in this order, because all I have to do now is select all but the last action. I can copy that and paste it to the next button up. Alright, and this now needs to change from VR to full screen, so I only have to go up 1. That equals 0, which it did. And here, what we do here is full screen. I do need to set the plus, because obviously when I change the variable name, it's resetting the operation and value. So I do need to select plus, and I do need to select 2. All right, but just to show you why I've copied and pasted, it will save time. If I go to the action filter, this is for the zoom. All right, so that's for the correct one. Okay, so now doing this becomes quicker. I can go position full screen equals, that needs to be +1. The action filter will be correct, and I go position full screen +1, and the action filter should still be correct thumbnails, because it's always the one above, which is that one there. So that's fine. That's just adding those actions then becomes much quicker. The only thing I need to do now really is go to the position logic block. I can copy that, go back to the thumbnail and paste that in. Now obviously I need to change the trigger, but it's the same deal as we've just done. I can change the trigger, and then I will need to change the values as well. But the other thing we'll need to do is, where I only copied all but the last one, when I'm doing the position logic block, I copy it in, but I can then delete the last one, because 28, I'm already there, so I don't need that. So I can delete the last logic block, or the last condition. So we just need to change this. So variable position, what we're doing, full screen. All right, so that's all we need to do. So that's variable position full screen. You can see the value change, so I need to change that back to 1. This is going to be 2, so position full screen, that needs to add to 2 or equal to 2, and this needs to equal to 3, so full screen equal to 3. And now that's that button done. All right, so if I save and we'll look at this. So if I add the full screen button now to this, what we should have is, again, let me just add the user agent so it's showing the iPhone, so the VR button. So I've got the VR button and full screen. If I remove the projection button, so basically what I should end up with is a plus minus full screen and VR button centered in the skin. And there it is. All right. So just to carry on then, what I'll do is I'm going to throw it over to Karen to ask any more questions, but I'm just going to, whilst Karen's looking at the questions, I'm going to quickly do the copy and pasting. Now you can see what I'm doing. So we've done the button here, but I'm just going to head down, get on with this, because it's just basically repeating these steps, which you don't need to hear me do. You can see me doing it, but Karen could be organising the questions whilst I'm doing that. So Karen, over to you.
Hi. So I'm going to start with Daniel's question because I can answer it, I think. So Daniel's saying or asking, what you're showing, is this the way the current silhouette controller component is built? And the answer is yeah, basically. I think there's some other things that Martin's put in there, but if you want to see how this is all working, and you can check out the silhouette and the simplex skin too. And this is another reminder that it's really best to always start with a clean skin, to not use the built-in skins and build on top of them.
I'll second that.
Yeah, just don't do that. It'll cause problems because you can see now how complex these skins can get. And so it's always better to start with a clean one. And Martin's basically showing you what he's done for the built-in skins. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So where are we? Thumbnail. So it's
yeah. Keep on going. We've got more questions.
yeah, go on.
Javier's asking, what's the difference between a skin and a template? So the skin. Let's see. I guess with what kind of template? There's a lot of templates. That would be to answer, but I think you might be thinking about a point hotspot template, like the HT_node, or you're talking about the HTML template that's outputted when you come back. So Javier, why don't you come back and clarify for us, and then we can probably better answer that question. So let's see, Domenico is so Domenico, your questions are really off topic, but I'm going to answer them anyway. Where he's asking what the roadmap is to preview version 7 features. We don't have a open roadmap, so but soon there'll be a beta whenever we get that finished, and there is no deadline. We don't publish our roadmaps. So, but do know version 7 is on the way. We're working on it, and sometime in the future, it'll all be there. Matt is asking, when VR is chosen but not available, you have to move everything over to be centered, correct?
Yes, and that's what we've just done right now. So that was what I was just doing. I will actually explain what I've just done, because I've just done it to be quick, but you can see that. Right, okay, so let's go back to the skin. What we've basically done is every time the skin loads or the player changes state, depending on what buttons are available, each button will give a numbered count. All right, so this button will give a count of 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, etc. So that's what's going to happen. But when you take a button away, we lose a count, and because we've now changed the count to say a different number, say from 6 to 5, we can say, right, at 5, everything can change its position. So theoretically, with everything I've just done, now obviously this is being recorded. Once it's finished, you can always whiz back and view the video at your own speed. But basically what should have happened now is if we go back into the So user agent, use it. So iPhone, so we see all the buttons available. If I go into the skin and choose them all, now I have been fast copying and pasting, and I'm swear I've not fixed anything, not fixed something yet, but yeah. So right, hang on, just lost that. So you can see with all the buttons available and it thinking it's a phone, we've got 6 buttons. If I take away the thumbnail menu, what's going to happen now is the count is going to say, right, the VR button and the full screen button both need to jump across each by 32 pixels because the button's missing. And this is now fully functional as like the V6 underscore skins. So that's basically what's going on. So that's now done. All right. What I need to move on to, there's 2 things here. Thomas, stop it. He's sending me messages. Right, stop it. I've not finished. Right, okay. So that's the buttons organising themselves. All right. So that's now working. We can see that, but we do have to tell the browser it is, acting like a phone. So there's a couple of things we need to do, and that is the player can detect, as we said, whether it's a phone or a computer. So how do we do that? Right, well, if we go back into the skin, what I do for the slider is I say to it on the VR button, right, because it will only add 1 if the VR is available, right, or VR option is set to true, because we've got these options. But I can add another player if VR is available. So this is another part of the filter. So when the option is being selected and the VR is available, that's when we'll see the button. Because don't forget, with the button itself, it's also got, it will only become visible if VR is available and the option is true. So now I don't need to keep adjusting the browser. So if I select all of the buttons now, so VR button is available and everything's there, right? So I've selected all these buttons. Because now we are detecting that VR is no longer available, it's not going to show the button, and the slider is going to react to that button is missing. So automatically it now centers itself. All right. So that's now auto hidden. If I was now to open this on an iPhone or any phone or any mobile device that's got VR available, boom, it automatically comes back and the buttons redistribute themselves. All right. Okay, now there is another thing here that I want to show. So I'm just going to close this project. All right, and I'm going to go into a single node project.
Hey Martin, can I just jump in with the rest of the questions before you go forward? Or is this still related to the VR button? Right,
no, go on, carry on. No, this is also a good place to stop.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry.
So, because there's quite a few questions, and I think it's good if we get through them. So Pascal is asking if, I'll just read it. I wonder what is the limitation in the default skins so that they cannot or shall not be modified? Can't or shouldn't I add my own components to the simplex or the silhouette skin at all? And how will this with new skins, which I build up from scratch, will it be problematic to add components later?
Right, you can see how. Well, let's basically we put this in. Please use the skin configuration to modify the skin. We put this in because what we were getting was lots of people modifying this skin and just removing buttons, thinking I've removed the button. It isn't going to affect it. But as you've just seen, these skins rely on certain options being selected for things to be hidden and shown. So if you've just gone in there and changed something without changing its associated optional variable or its position variable, then you're going to break it and you're going to end up scratching your head and probably getting really frustrated because all I've done is taken a button away. I don't want to see it anymore. Why is it now the other side of the screen and why isn't it where it should be and blah, 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 is because of all of this background actions and variables going on. So this is why we actually do say, please do not modify these skins. You can after this webinar and you've done this a few times and all this is second nature, you can go in and do what you want. But as I say, what we're finding is that there is no what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to use this word. There's no appreciation to what's gone in the background of these skins, and and people just going in and just deleting buttons and deleting stuff, and then it all looks horrible, and they then come back to me and say, oh, this doesn't work and that doesn't work, and I'm going, well, we did say don't touch it.
I think you could liken it to just like programming. If we were to give you the code for Pano 2 VR, would you just jump in there and start deleting stuff and just say, oh, it doesn't work? So a lot of the things are connected. And
absolutely.
That's what's happening. So, of course, you can add to it and everything, but the likelihood that things break, or like Daniel said, he tried to replicate maybe on top of this and it just didn't work. There's no... You can go in there and change things if you want, but it'll probably give you a headache, and then you'll probably contact us and we'll get headaches.
Right. Okay. In the past, yes, when we didn't have all of this technology, then yes, it was easier just to modify skins that didn't have variables and positions. Nowadays, where we've got all of this, as you see, or you probably experienced, it's a bit more of a headache. This is why I turn around and say, when you're designing a skin from the very outset, think about it. Think about the skin. Think about what you want this to do. Because once it's built, I'm not saying that you can't add a button. Of course you can add a button, but then what you've got to say to yourself, right, is that if I'm going to add a button to the left, that means I now need to position the slider and the main controller another 16 pixels over to the right. I now need to change all the numbering scheme to accommodate the new button. I've done this as we've changed it, because when we first started with these skins, there was no VR button at the time. We just had as we were talking earlier, we only had the cardboard template, but we still had these skins. So when we had the new VR button come in, it was like, oh god, I've got to add this to it, and I know what I was doing, so and I added it to it. It's doable. It's not nice, but it's doable. This is why we turn around and say, possibly, if you want to build a skin, start with a new skin, go to the components toolbox, add the components that you want, and then just reposition the buttons at the bottom. Job done. But this, as I say, the whole point of doing this is if you're producing a skin that that you're either going to sell it to someone where you don't want them going in there and breaking it, you can just have the skin configuration button where they can choose and hide and show and things like that. The actual, as I say, this webinar, building skins professionally, building skins perhaps to sell and to stop people having to go into the skin editor. That's the whole point, so play at your own risk, as they say.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. So and yeah, Daniel has some good comments to that too, so you can read that. So thanks for getting back to us, Javier. He still just doesn't understand the difference between a template and a skin, and I'm assuming that you're thinking about an HTML template, maybe what Martin had mentioned earlier, the cardboard VR template. Right, and this is a HTML template, and it exports an HTML file that you can edit later on. So it really has nothing to do with the skin. It just is a template for the HTML file that's exported as part of the whole project. I hope that explains it. Or Martin, if you have a better explanation.
Well, no, we have two lots of templates. We have the HTML template, but don't forget we also have an output template. So you can save all of this settings to a template. So the next time you want to build a very similar project with the similar settings, it may be that, I don't know, for some reason you don't want multi-resolution, you want a single resolution. So you set the output up, save that template, and then when you come to create an HTML5 template, you go select the template if you've got any saved, and then you could select it from there, and then you load exactly that copy of what you had before. So that's the only other template I can think of.
Oh no, there's a hotspot template in the skin.
Oh yeah, true enough.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
there's a few other, but I think it was probably the HTML template. Okay, so let's move on.
Right.
Bernhard is asking, can this procedure with the button be applied to a custom menu also? So, yeah, I mean, I think what's being built is a custom menu, or yeah.
I think if he's talking about, because I mean, to be honest, I'm struggling to understand the question, but I would imagine because if you're talking about a thumbnail menu, I think because we use cloners, it just clones whatever's there. So I'm going to hold my hand up, so I don't understand the question. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe it could be a menu. Maybe Ben Hardy can come back with a clarification. And finally, Bernhard, saying, okay, yeah, I guess using drop-down menus like top site menus. So, as he says, home, about us, so showing and hiding based on that. Yeah, I would say, yeah, you can apply, this isn't just for buttons, you can apply this to...
Absolutely. I mean, basically what this is, if I can just, sorry Karen, button in, but basically you can see that using the player state changed and adding numbers to a variable, you're actually creating a numbered reference. So as you add and take away items, you change that numbered reference, and then you can make things happen depending on the number. I mean, at the end of the day, we could have a banner at the top that when all buttons are available, it's blue. But if there's only 5 buttons available, it's green. You know, we can use those variables then into any way, shape and form we wish. I'm just in today's webinar about building professional skins, so you can develop your own skins and sell them or do whatever you want. We're just concentrating on buttons, but really, again, it's just really down to your own imaginations what you can do with this. I don't know, concept is probably the word I'm looking for. But so this concept of player state change, building up numbers depending on what's available, and then use that number to affect something else later on down the road. I mean, yeah, because that's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, I would agree. So Monty was just asking, can't you just copy one of the built-in skins and then play around with it? Absolutely. You can totally do that. Just be aware of the fact that when you go in there and change things and remove things and whatever, then it might break and you might not know why, and it'll just be frustrating. We're just trying to prevent frustration, I guess. That's the main thing. But of course you can copy it, play around with it, and if it works for you, it works, I guess. But it's really great to go in there and dive deep and see how things are done if you can. Absolutely.
I mean, this is a self-learning course on Pano 2VR logic blocks and things. But one of the other things as well is think about the skin. I mean, if you build a skin with every conceivable option you can think of, and then have a configuration, right, where you can turn on and off these options. The problem is if you turn off a load of options, so you might have only 3 buttons at the bottom, don't forget that skin is still going to have all of that stuff in it. So when somebody downloads that skin, like when they open up your panorama, they've got to download and download all of those buttons, but only 3 of them are going to be showing. So this is where sometimes, where it's better to say, let's just start a new skin, pick a few of the components, build a skin specifically for that job, because that will give you the leanest, cleanest and quickest download. These are skins that you can sell to people that really don't want to do any skin work at all, or that's the whole point with the Simpex and Silhouette. I mean, we're actually using SVGs which are very, very light in file size, so our skins are actually not that heavy, but if you've got graphics in there and things like that as well, and you put ping buttons in, and then the skin starts to get heavy, don't forget then you've then bloated the skin out and half of it's not going to be used. So think about this before you build it. What options are likely to be used and not used, and are all the options going to be used? So
And I think that's maybe another thing too. If you want to sell your skins, you don't want to, well, I mean, maybe it's a personal thing, but you might not want to sell your design on top of the built-in design, right? So that's another possible reason not to just build on top of the built-in skins, but to build from the ground up your own skin. So that's, and that's it for the questions. You can move on.
right, lovely. Right, okie dokie. Right, so what I've done is I've closed the multi-node project. I've now opened a single node project. I've selected the skin and I'm going to output it. Now we've already decided or already adjusted the skin so it now automatically detects whether it's a phone where it's got the VR button or not. So let's just turn that back off again. So user agent back to default. There we go. And I can add and show my buttons and it all works. But there is a problem. Anyone spot the problem with this skin? There is a problem with this skin on this particular project. Any takers? I'll give you to the count of me sipping a cup of tea. If anyone can come up with it. Any takers? I can't see, so I'm going to rely on Karen to tell me if anyone's put a note
I'm
in.
also trying to figure out, I don't know, there's still a line in the center?
No.
Corolla says full screen does not work on mobile.
No. No, well, it doesn't, but there's another good one as well. This is a single node project and it's got a thumbnail menu. Boom!
Oh, yeah.
Right, so how can we do this? Well, this is really easy. Now that we know, but it does take a bit of work, and we'll just go through those steps. So we actually do have a logic block for this. So if we go for the thumbnail menu and have a look at it's visible, we said that when the option thumbnail menu is true, we're going to see it. But what we can do is also add under tour is tour. Yeah? So if it's a tour and it's turned on, we will see it. But if it's not a tour, i.e. a single node project, we won't see the button. So it's hidden. Okay, so let's just check that out. Does it work? Yes, it does work. The button's gone. Sadly, my other buttons don't know about this yet, so they've not jumped across. So what we need to do is go to the slider, all right, and say to the slider that, you know, you're going to need to position yourself for the thumbnail menu. So if we go VR full screen thumbnail, it's going to be the third one up. If I double click that, you'll see it says optional thumbnail, and that also needs to be if it's a tour. All right. Okay, so that's now the thumbnail slider now reacting to whether it's a tour or not. But what we now need to do is these buttons, they need to jump and fill this gap if that button's not there. So on our enter VR, that's going to be the second one up, because that one, the first one's going to be the full screen button, the next one up's going to be the thumbnail. Here we go. So that's going to be, is it a tour? Yes. Boom, done. And if we go to the full screen button, that will be, because the thumbnail is the next one up, so it'll be the lowest one, and that will be is it a tour? Yes. Right, okay, so this will now respond to being a single node. You can see that if I go to the skin configuration, all the buttons are selected, including thumbnail and VR buttons, but now the output is detecting that it's on a computer and it's a single node, therefore no VR button and no thumbnail. Now I can prove that point by just closing this single node project, going back to my multi-node project with the same skin. Everything is selected as should be. So let's just publish this out, and my thumbnail menu is back again. There you go. So we've now not only adapted to what, you know, if it's VR or not, but we've now adapted to whether it's a tour or not. And someone pointed out, well, the full screen button doesn't work on iOS. Well, you can do exactly the same as that. I'm not going to do it, but if we go into, I'm just going to show you where you would do it. So here, if I was to show you the the logic for, oh, that's the thumbnail, where's the zoom, oh, that's going to be the end one, isn't it? Zoom, not zoom, what am I after? Full screen, full screen, full screen. The next one up, there we go, full screen. So you could actually put in here player is mobile, so that'd be iOS, and then you can do it that way as well. So very much how we did the other button with is mobile, is to, you can do is mobile here. Anyway, I'm not going to break that because that's basically the skin and positioning and everything else done. All right, what I'm going to do now is highlight my helpers and delete them. And now what we want to quickly look at, I say quickly, but what I want to look at is now colouring the skin using the skin configuration. Now what I'm going to do is expand all the boxes so I can get to all of my buttons. All right, because I want to, and well, I say all buttons, not just buttons. Let's just expand everything. And right, so I've expanded everything because what I want to get to is all the black and white elements. All right, so if I just now highlight all of the black and white elements in the skin, so let's just do this. Bump, bump, bump. I'm holding down the command key. You can hold down the control on your PC, and then once I've selected all the elements that I want to colorize, as it were, I'm going to select the color tool. There we go. And here we can see that we've got, if I'm just expanding these, the SVG fill for black and the SVG fill for the white logo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right button click here. I'm going to expose the color, and I'm going to expose this as button background, and I'm going to select the alpha. If you don't select that, you can only select solid colors or change solid colors. With the alpha, you can then adjust its opacity. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to do the same thing, expose but new, and this will be my button foreground. Again, I'll use the alpha, click apply. I'm going to save the skin. Right, so you've opened up the skin, you go to skin configuration, boom, there it is, button background, foreground. So I can now select colors. So let's do blue for the background and I don't know, yellow for the foreground. And as we create the project, we've now changed the colors. All right, now obviously all what we've done is affected anything that was black and white. So the check mark for the visited, let's go back, so that's now blue as well, so that's the check mark for the visited or for the entrance. So yes, that's the black and whites there. Now of course you can do much more than this. We could turn and say, right, okay, I want to, if I select all the text boxes, all right, I think that's all there are. Again, I can open up the color tool, and if we expose all of these, because what we've got is text. So if I right button click, I can expose. I'll start new, and I'm just going to put text color, and again I'll put an alpha with that. I'm going to put an alpha with everything, to be fair. And then we've got the background color of the other text boxes. Now we've got several text boxes and they're all different, so we've got different opacities with the so here we've got these two are slightly different, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to expose that as text background, again with alpha. All right, I don't need to do that now that it's been selected. If I've got another element, I can right button click and expose as and find it from the list and just select it. Okay, so if I now apply that, close, so that's all I need to do in the skin. So again, you select your skin, go to skin configuration, so right, text color, I don't know, let's make it the blue, and then the background I can make it the yellow, but I don't know, let's go down to an alpha of 100, click OK, then export the project. We've now got the yellow and the blue text. Alright, so that's So yeah, basically we can start to play around. Now, if you decide that you want to change a colour, so let's go to this text box. If you select it in the skin and go to the colour tool, expand everything so you can see which has already been exposed. You can say text colour, do not expose, and then you can expose it as something else, or give it a new title to be exposed as. So that's basically let's go back to text color for that. So that's basically exposing text. Now, it's easy to do, but you got to think about, you want to limit the colors that you need to expose. Now, you don't have to, but it's just my thought process. My thought process is, well, if I've adjusted the button background and the button foreground, what I want is, in the actual output, when I hover out, shouldn't the background or the border of the preview be blue as well? So yeah, it should. I think that would be a good thing to do. So you would need to find that. So let's go to the pick this. So HT, so preview. Let's go to, now I know it's not the border. We actually are changing the color of the background. So I'm going to expose that as the button background. So that's going to be the border. So theoretically then, he says that we've now got a blue border. There we go. So, you know, think about this. Think about what colours you're doing. Now, I've exposed the colours separately for the text because it may be that yellow is not dark enough. I might need to change that yellow slightly darker, but I don't want to change the yellow of the button foreground, because I need that to be a solid. That particular yellow I need to be, it needs to have some opacity to it. So, you know, think about when you're adding the colours, which colours do you need to add, what do you need to adjust separately, but also try and minimise the list here. You know, I mean, you could literally go thumbnail menu, you know, hover and thumbnail menu selected and thumbnail menu this, and you can have a whole list here. But, you know, try and think of how you can group colours together, you know, because, you know, if a button is blue, why not have a blue, you know, surround on the preview image? You know, it's that thought process. Anyway, that's the externalizing the colors and bringing that into the skin configuration. At the moment, I think it's going to change. I'm going to put everyone on the line here, but exposing colors only works with skins. It doesn't work with components. You cannot do this with a component and bring it in. But I'm under the impression this will be something happening in the future, say a version 7, where you can actually expose a color in a component, and that will also happen. But at the moment, the color tool is part of the skin, so therefore that button has to be in the skin before we can expose the color in it. So that's just one thing to bear in mind, that if you're selling skins, you can do this. If you're selling a component, then you won't be able to colorize the component, because if you're putting it into a skin and that's got no external colors, then you won't see it. But all of this, like all the parameters, will work. So yeah, there you go. Right, I think I've just about done skins to death, really. I hope, I hope, have we got any questions on colors and color tools and things?
No, I think we're good on that. So there was not a question, but a note that Rael had written into the chat window, that was related to you to your arrangement of the buttons, making space and expanding and making it smaller. And I thought maybe this might be interesting to you. He's saying that I use a different approach to achieve the same thing. I assign a variable to each button with their location, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then I change each button location by multiplying the order number by the width of the button.
Right. Okay.
So
Well, I mean, the skin is a blank canvas. However and whatever works for you. For us, I say for us, for me, removing buttons from the left and then pushing and sliding it over from left to right, or removing buttons from the right and sliding it over to the left, it just, that works, and it's simple. If you can find a different way that you're more comfortable with doing, then that's fine. I mean,
yeah, I think that's important, that Martin, the way Martin is presenting all of these is not the end all be all only way of doing things. Yeah,
it's just
usually it's the best way.
Well, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, I'm sure there's, sometimes I do things and, and I'll talk to Thomas or I'll talk to Christoph and they'll say, you know what, there's a better way of doing it, and I'm like, oh, really? But, that's the thing. It's what works. There is no wrong. If the result is you get what you want, then that's fine. Where's the wrong in that? It's, if it takes you 5 minutes longer because you've gone around the houses, doesn't matter, because if you try and learn a new way that you're not familiar with, the chances are it's going to take you longer because you're trying to understand the new way. And in your own time, obviously learn new ways, but like most of you guys, it's time's money. You actually need to do the best skin you can for your customer, and and does it work? Does it do everything it should do? Yes, boom, done. That's...
I think that's what, not that your way is always the best way, but I know, at least for myself, when I'm trying to figure out how to do something in the skin, I'll do it, and I'll like, yeah, I got it. And then I'll ask Martin for a little bit of help, and he's like, why don't you just do it like this? It's like, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm like, what? So, and I think any of you who are on the forum or in Facebook, you probably have this same revelation, sometimes. So, but the end of the story is that, whatever works for you,
Absolutely. As I say, as long as the end result is what you want, then the journey to that result doesn't matter. I'm hoping that these webinars are, quick and easy, and show you quick and easy and more logical ways to do things, to reduce your timing to achieve what you want. But if it's not the right fit for you and you come up with something else that works for you, then so be it. I'm happy, as long as you don't say to me, Martin, I've broke this and I've got no idea what you're doing because you're doing your own thing. But other than that, I'm fine. But no, it's all good. Right. Anything else?
No, I think that's it. Javier says many thanks. So yeah, you're welcome. Just to reiterate, the webinar, all the webinars are posted on our website to view later. So if you want to check this out later, ingest it again, it'll be available in a few days, along with all our other webinars. And there's also documentation, written documentation. So there's you can check that out. And and I think that's it. And thanks from Danielle and Domenico. Yeah, and thank you
awesome.
too. Thanks for joining us. It's been like 4 weeks or something like
Absolutely,
that.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got 2 notes here to finish with, and
okay.
One of them is just to really go back to what we said before. I mean, after viewing this and you start playing around and you think, you know what, I can do this. I can make skins. I can sell skins. Let us know if you've got a website where you want to sell skins from. Let us know, and if we've got enough people, then we will create a page where people can go to find you to buy your skin. So we're happy to do that. But obviously, 1 or 2 people isn't going to be worth it. But please give us some feedback on to, if you want to do this, let us know. And then the other note I've got is next webinar. Basically, 2 weeks from now is going to be styling skins, or styling skin elements. So using it's more of a touching on CSS for styling, say like text boxes and text and things like that. So if you just want to give the presentation a little bit more of oomph, as they say, then this is going to be the webinar. It's not going to be deep. It's not going to be coding, because I'm not a coder, and I can assure you, if I was, it would never be happening. But you know, it's quick and easy how to make things look a little bit better. So the webinar is going to be styling skin elements. So that's going to be the next one. Anyway, I think that's it from me. Thank you very much all for joining me. And Karen, you got anything else?
Yeah, I was sorry, I got distracted. Because Gustavo just came in with the really last question. I just want to acknowledge it. He's asking for display a counter on a skin so it's synchronized so that everyone can see something at the same time. So yeah, there's a timer in the skin, and I just recommend searching for searching on our website or in the Facebook group or the forum. Don't forget about the forum. Oh my God, there's so much information there. And yeah, so I think that's what you're talking about. But there is a way to do that too. Yeah, so most of the time, if you have a question and you wonder, can you do this? Most of the time, the answer is yes. Sometimes you can't, but it's finding the right tools. Okay, so yeah, that's it. We're getting a lot of thank you from everybody. Thank you too for joining us. It's always a pleasure. So that's it from me.
Absolutely, because without you, we wouldn't be here. So, yeah, big thanks to everybody. Okay, as I said, that's it from me. I'm done. And looking forward to seeing you all again next time round.